Hey, there you go. Look at that.
The subject of much conversation.
Good evening, everyone.
She didn't know.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hey,
You're welcome.
It's 5 o'clock. Welcome to the Peterborough Select Board meeting for December 5th. I'm Tyler Ward. With me at the table are Bill Kennedy and Bill Taylor, fellow Select Board members. We have Nicole McStay, our Town Administrator. Allie Kreutz is our Assistant to the Town Administrator. She'll be taking our minutes this evening. If anybody has any questions or would like to add to the conversation, please raise your hand. Even though most of us know each other, we like to capture your name for the record, so say that for Allie. And I don't know your name yet, but I assume you're with the Chamber of Commerce.
Yes.
And we'll meet you in a second.
Yep.
We just had Jamie on the agenda, but it's nice to see you all with us. So we'll start with the Chamber of Commerce is going to talk about promoting the region, and then we have Senator Fenton here. Welcome, Donovan. Nice to see you. Give us a legislative update. Seth MacLean will once again bring us up to speed on the fire station project. And then we have some expenditures, or an expenditure to approve, and some minutes to approve, and possibly appoint a few people to commissions. So, up first, welcome, Luca and Jerry and
Julie.
Julie. Nice to see you guys.
Yeah, thanks. I'm Jamie Trowbridge, resident of Peterborough, and appreciate your time this evening. We're here to talk to you about a project we've been working on for some time about promoting the entire Monadnock region, all of Cheshire County and all of the Condell School District. It's a project that's sponsored by the Monadnock, Greater Monadnock Collaborative, a regional chamber of commerce, and this is a project that the town has supported financially, and so we're here really to report on the progress we've made and also to update you on what we're going to do next. And to make that update, I have Julie Schulzel here. She is our project manager, and Luca Paris is here. He's the CEO of the chamber, and Michelle Delavita, also the director of development for the chamber. So we're all here to answer your questions. We want it to be interactive, so you can interrupt with questions. Julie's going to make the presentation, and also just want to take the opportunity to thank Nicole for joining the board of the collaborative and having that representation from Peterborough on the Chamber's board. So over to you, Julie.
All right. Thank you, Jamie. I am Julie Schulzel, as he said, and I'm the project manager for the Promoting the Region initiative. And this initiative, at its heart, is a mission to recruit and retain a modern workforce. And so we're going to go back in time a little bit, and we're going to talk about, in January 2020, the Monadnock Ledger, you're just going to look at this map for a second while I chat, published a story with the headline, "A Look Ahead, the Future of Tourism in the Monadnock Region." And in that article, it was announced that the Peterborough Chamber and the Keene Chamber were coming together to develop a task force to promote the Monadnock region, specifically to promote tourism to the Monadnock region. The plan was to have this effort collaboratively and sustainably funded by local businesses, foundations, colleges, and other organizations. And so why would businesses want to fund an effort to promote tourism? Why should Nanotech care if a couple of 30-year-olds from Hartford spend a lovely weekend at Cranberry Meadow Farm in Peterborough? Why should Timken want a teenager and his parents to come see Scotty McCreery at the Colonial? There's one quote from that article that answers that question very succinctly. We're sitting on a demographic time bomb. It was Jamie Trowbridge who said it. As he mentioned, he's a chamber board member. He's the chair of the committee to promote the region. He's also the CEO of Yankee Publishing. So what does it mean to sit on a demographic time bomb? Well, here are some headlines that we have. We have New Hampshire's record low unemployment. And so what that means is that there are currently 900 people looking for work with 4,000 jobs open within the region, at least. There's probably more. We are the second oldest state in the country with a rapidly declining K through 12 enrollment, as much as 34% in certain districts. I know you're all aware of that. There's a national decline in college enrollment, and that's certainly being felt at our local higher education institutions, and then while jobs in nursing go understaffed. It's our larger employers being faced with struggling to scale and meet demand. Over on the right there, those are some job listings for CNS, which currently has over 100 positions open. Larger companies, those with 100 or more employees, only make up 2.5% of all the businesses in the region, but they cover more than 40% of the wages. They're also our largest nonprofit supporters. We really need these companies to be able to remain here and to thrive here. So let's get back to that question. Why tourism?
Oh.
The goal, I'm sure some of you know that. That is Todd Horner of the Southwest Regional Planning Commission and his wife Robin and their daughter Margot.
Oh, you know.
Robin works in McDowell.
Yeah. And Margot is just the cutest. So she gets front and center. So why tourism, right? So we want to turn weekenders into workers. And to do that, the first thing we had to do was create a regional brand, and then you got to get it out there. And so that task force from January 2020 didn't realize that there was another ticking time bomb forming. And with the onset of the pandemic, it wasn't the right time to fundraise from local donors, but COVID did present another opportunity. So in the summer of 2021, they were awarded an EDA grant, $400,000, $100,000 of which required a match, and Peterborough previously contributed to that. So you already played a role in helping this get off the ground into phase one. And with that money, they hired Northstar, a nationally recognized marketing firm from Florida that specializes in place branding. They created the position of project manager, which is me. And to develop the brand, they met with people here, they spent a week here, they traveled more than 250 miles throughout the region. They met with some of you here, actually. They did cold calls, they did research. They had a survey that went out to residents of the region that had more than 800 respondents, which is the second highest participation rate that they've ever seen in the 20 years that they've been doing this. And so with more than 2,200 data points from all that research, they developed, and with us from the chamber and the committee there, developed the brand. So brand is New Hampshire's Monadnock region within thriving distance. So we wanted to include New Hampshire because we felt like Monadnock region, just people didn't know it enough to leave it on its own. So it was important to mention that it was in what state it was in. You will see the icon there on the right. You'll see fall colors for sure because everyone feels like New England is very associated with fall. And you'll see the mountain and water at the base of that mountain to sort of signify, we think that we get overlooked sometimes as really having a lot of wonderful water access. And then that arrow that points up, which really indicates upward mobility, it's fresh, it's modern. And then we have within thriving distance, which is something to really be thought of as someone seeing this from outside the region. So you'll see some examples, but one I like to give is someone sitting on the T in Boston, and there's an ad, and it says, "Why take the T when you can thrive?" And it's a picture of like a car on a beautiful road in the fall. You're within thriving distance. So it's really to support the effort to promote the region outside. And let's see the brand in action. So we developed a website that went live in January of this year. There are 4 pillars to this website. You can see those dots, the circles there. And they are visit here, live here, learn here, and work here. There's also an interactive map of the region, and that has things like skiing, lakes, kids activities, rail trails, mountain biking, colleges, arts and culture, and more. And then each page has its own map that sort of links with that page, so the education one has more schools than just the colleges. There's lots of fun ways to search, to learn and discover about the region based on interests. And then we have theme landing pages for the season, each season. So here are some samples of ads that we've been doing. And so these are digital ads. They've been appearing whether it's on Facebook or websites, like, like newspapers, wherever you might see ads, typically. This was part of the summer campaign. You'll see Todd and Robin again over there in the corner.
Having a date.
and I'm literally off camera holding their baby, who is staring at them like, what's going on? But we got the photo, and that's what matters. And so, just to give an example from this summer campaign, that Amazing Views, Delicious Brews, what we did there is we built a whole campaign around hiking and then going out for a beer. And this campaign did really well. It had the highest click-through rate that the agency that we're working with has ever seen on an ad. And we built an interactive map. So when you click on a brewery, you can see what trails are nearby. And actually, that's what those coasters I gave out earlier link to, that same piece. And then these are the winter ads that are out right now. We've had more sets of ads. I just didn't want to bore you by showing you a bunch of ads. So this is the winter set that's out right now. And the sleigh rides actually took over the beer, and they are now the most clicked ad that they've ever had at the agency that we're working with. So the website's doing really well, getting a lot of traffic. This is a map of who we're marketing to, right? And so far, from launching in January, so we really started advertising in February through October, we've had 16 million impressions, 146,000 website visits, 200,000 streaming ad views, and 400, we're up to almost 600 now newsletter subscribers. So slowly just building that audience and trying to get them to come back. This is an example of the newsletter. You'll see Peterborough right there. This is the fall one I sent out. I include a cool job that's available. We do events. Donuts are another big hit with people.
Yes, cider donuts was a huge Facebook
Yes,
conversation.
and I kept linking to the post we have about it. It was very exciting. And I'm on all the town Facebook pages, for better or worse, for my mental health, but I do get a lot of tips there.
I'm gonna take work.
But, right now, a popular question is, where can I go cut down Christmas trees, right? And so we have that one up now, and there are a lot of, you get some good ideas from there. And then this is the Thrive Guide, which all of you have, or the select board here has. We have more copies too if anyone wants to take one. And we published this with Yankee, and it's 68 pages. We have 10,000 hard copies distributed. We have 125,000 digital copies that Yankee emailed to their subscribers. And we raised $50,000 in advertising. And another thing that's working, there's this digital version of the magazine that's working really well with what we call retargeting. So someone comes to the website and then they leave, and then they get another ad that says, hey, you were into the Monadnock region, you should download our visitor's guide. And it's doing really well. So working out very nicely. And these are some social media influencers that we've worked with. So whenever I work with an influencer, I really like to work with a great photographer, and then part of the deal is that we get to keep the photography to use in perpetuity. Because it's actually, we did hire a photographer right away as well. It's just hard to find people to be in photos. It's New England and people are shy. And so it's great when I have an influencer who's, totally comfortable being in a lot of photos. So you'll see that first one is Keene, and then this young woman came and she hiked a variety of trails where you could bring dogs. Then we have a summer weekend in the region, and then there's Peterborough over there on the right. Peterborough was the first one that we did. It was the most successful. It's got almost 100,000 views at this point. What's also nice about the social media stuff is we share it obviously here as well. So in the comments, you'll have people who've never been here commenting like, I need to visit this place, I'm adding it to my list, this looks awesome. And then you have people who live here and they say, oh my God, my city is so beautiful, I love it, I feel so lucky to live here. Or you have people who say, oh my gosh, I went to college in that area, it's so wonderful. And it just is a very natural, organic way to both instill some pride and some excitement. Yeah?
So when I'm on Instagram, I'm scrolling through Reels.
Yeah.
And I come across one that says, towns most likely to be in a Hallmark movie in New England, and Peterborough's listed.
Yeah.
Is that you guys?
No.
Because I saw that, yes.
I need to find that. I'm obsessed with Hallmark movies, so.
Well, we all are.
We all are, right?
Yeah.
And I would love to have a reel made of people meeting for the first time in different spots throughout the Monadnock region, but we'll talk about that another time. One more thing about Hallmark
When
movies.
content like that comes out, we can connect to it and
Yeah,
amplify it.
we'll share it for
and
sure.
Share it. So we're looking for that too.
We had a speaker from the Aspen Institute who was at Radically Rural actually comment on the value of Hallmark movies for showing rural areas in like a new light to a lot of people. So they have their place.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So we have such a terrible lack of housing. I mean, do you work on that aspect too?
We are not doing anything, we don't, no. So short answer is no. I do think, if as people talk about housing and developers coming and doing whatever, and Peterborough I know has really been trying to do that in a way that's sustainable. I think we partner well with that because if you were going to invest and develop housing, you'd really want to know that there was an effort to continue to promote the region. So not doing anything directly, but do feel we complement the work that needs to go with it.
I'm just worried if all these people came up then.
That would be that's a problem that would probably solve itself, I like to think, in some way, but it takes too long.
That's what we're hoping.
Yeah.
Most problems do solve themselves anyway.
Well,
And
no,
also, it
so
doesn't work that
seriously,
fast.
this is a question we've gotten right from
Yeah.
the very beginning,
Yeah.
right? And we've said, we can't cover this one too. It's a problem that needs to be solved. And there are all kinds of good efforts to make that happen. But this isn't going to lead to an overwhelming influx of residents. It's one of the concerns we've heard from people is, I like the region just the way it is. I don't want it to change. We're not trying to change it. We're trying to attract more people here who like what we have. And as people age out, we're going to need new people to take their place. And
Yeah, can I just say, when you did the ticking time bomb thing, I just finished writing my fourth review for the Affordable Housing Committee Neighbors Together book corner, and it's all about that. It's communities and consequences, and if we don't attract young people and find the right kind of, I see everybody nodding, naturally occurring, affordable / workforce housing. So everybody's all over this. And all I want you to know is that that's another local resource that's on it.
Mhm.
And so I'm excited about this.
Yeah.
You know?
we're competing with other regions for these people.
That's a good point.
And
Yeah.
if we don't market ourselves, we're not going to win.
Yeah.
And let's remember, Peterborough has approved and kind of starting in the works close to 400 or more units, 100 of which could be relatively affordable. So in the next 2 to 3 years, build-out will take place.
When we started this, we got the housing question, we got the what about the internet question, we got about what about the transportation question. We can't solve all these
Right.
problems. And we can't wait till they're solved
Right.
to start doing this.
And I want to say, while Julie's project is not involved in housing, the chamber is. The Greater Monadnock Collaborative is part of the Monadnock Resource Alliance Group, working on housing issues as well. So, but we, like Julie, dedicated to promoting the region.
Yeah. But just for her to know that the
Yes.
region is also
Yes.
being proactive.
So just a couple success stories. Trying to remember, we really launched this in January. So the Peterborough influencer campaign that we did actually resulted in a writing retreat being booked at Cranberry Meadow Farm. And then that writing retreat then promoted Peterborough to 10,000 more people, so that was great. Rivermead, I'm not going to read this whole quote, but basically says that the content has been helpful to them as they attract new residents, and then also work with the families to help them understand what's in the area. Cheshire Medical is using our materials, the website and the magazine, for recruitment for their new family residency program. And Ashby Lit Concerts reached out to me, and they were like, oh, we're really seeing a lot of people coming from the coast, from Boston, from Western Mass. at our events that were never there before. So it seems to be doing what we want it to do as far as getting people here. So phase one, we got the website going, we're really talking about tourism, and now we're at phase two, we've got next steps. And I'm very happy to report that we were awarded a Northern Border Regional Commission grant. And the Northern Border, this isn't gonna roll right off my tongue, so I need to look at this, I wrote it down. Is a federal-state partnership which supports initiatives designed to address the economic well-being of counties located in parts of New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. And so we were awarded $290,000, and we need to get a $57,000 match. And this is for a 2-year, highly targeted, like ages 16 to 29, marketing campaign that's committed to higher education, early career development, entrepreneurship, and the high quality of life that's offered here. So we do have dorm rooms, right? Like we can bring people in and have them discover the region in college, and then come up with ways that while they're at school, get really connected to the community, and that's what this grant enables us to do. So very excited about that. And then we were also awarded a Cheshire County grant of $100,000, and that requires a $100,000 match as well. And that one can be used for marketing, operations, and whatever we need it to be. So, with the work of the first grant, we've proven to be successful enough to receive additional funding, both federally and locally. And so your support, it helps keep the momentum going, right? We want to keep getting that photography, that videography, the website, more publish the Thrive Guide regularly. It's really important that the content remain fresh, and we want to have sustained, uninterrupted advertising campaigns. Grants have a lot of paperwork and start stops and sort of just makes it hard to continuously fund things. And so sometimes we have to stop and hit pause, and then the advertising has to hit pause, and then we got to start up again. And this kind of funding will enable us to not have to do that anymore. We want to work more with turning the weekenders into workers. I'm talking right now with a hotel group that owns a couple of properties in the region about the little packet your key comes in. Putting something on there that's like it here, live here, and just a QR code and something that links to our website, and just and then working with their team to talk about what it's like to live here as well. We also would really like to get in front of some wedding guests. There's over 3,000 wedding guests in the Monadnock region every season that we have weddings that fall into that age demographic that we're trying to hit. And what are some fun ways that we can engage with them while they're here? And that's, these are people who are probably young adults, maybe even engaged themselves. That's a great audience to get in front of. Probably having a really good time. And then your support changes the headlines. So what I want to do now is take a minute to imagine what the headlines will be in 2033 when this initiative has really taken off and done its thing. So we have the New York Times Magazine, how New Hampshire's Monadnock region deactivated a piping hot demographic time bomb. And the New York Times just wrote about Vermont's efforts that they're doing in this same initiative. So they are on this. And then we have the Globe, right? Why are so many young people moving to Southwest New Hampshire? Turns out it's more than just pumpkins and bars. Newsweek, New Hampshire leaps from second oldest state to 30th in just 10 years. And then we have Business Week. Manufacturers and colleges make the Monadnock region an innovative leader in AI technology, attracting entry-level workers, entrepreneurs, and CEOs. And we have the Washington Post, New Hampshire's Monadnock region, where you can live free and thrive.
That's great.
And so, I'm going to end here with a video that we produced to showcase what we love about living here. And when we think about our community now, we celebrate that we have so much history that still thrives here today. We've got Monadnock Paper Mills here since 1819, the Peterborough Players here since 1933, New Hampshire Ball Bearings here since 1946, the Keene Sentinel, which wins here since 1799. So much of what made this a great place to start a company, work here, raise a family, and go to school here remains, while allowing space for innovation and even major cultural shifts. In this video, you'll see vibrant downtowns, live music, innovation in action alongside pond skating, canoeing, bike riding, hiking, family time, apple picking, farming, and young people falling in love, the way it has been for hundreds of years. This initiative to promote the region isn't about changing what makes this place special, it's about saving it, and we hope you'll continue to help us do just that.
Before we go to the film,
Mm-hmm.
Are you aware that we have a similar effort going on through our EDA to promote Peterborough? So you
Yeah.
collaborate with them?
Oh, just starting to speak with Megan a little bit, and
Okay.
a little bit, but we haven't had like a unified effort yet.
And you're familiar with Danica
Mm-hmm.
Malone?
Yes.
She's very much involved in that too.
Yeah. She's great. We actually we were together at Franklin Pierce
Oh, okay.
doing, like, introducing ourselves to families and stuff, and we were next to each other.
And the funding we got from you came from the EDA.
EDA,
That-
right.
That was where the funds came through.
Right, I remember the road.
I'd like to add one thing. One thing I'm beginning to discover, and I should have known it a lot longer ago, is that each town or each area has a historic society. And inside there's a lot of very interesting information, and it doesn't matter if you're from the region or not. It's just plain human interesting.
Yeah.
The matchbook business, in fact, still here, in fact.
Is it really?
And the people who make a lot of the coasters in the United States are also here, too. So you should have your coasters made here.
I'll have to talk to the agency.
Promotion
Maybe
for
they work.
DD being there. But in fact, I got a tour,
Yeah.
which was very unusual for somebody to do because they don't allow outsiders to come in. But there are some things hidden away in history, especially if you go to Harrisville.
Yeah.
And look at the mill, the history of the mill there. Outsiders would be just as fascinated as an insider.
Yeah.
But that's all I can say.
Yeah, that's
But I wanted to
great.
mention that as part of part of the interest of the region. Quite interesting, more than I thought.
We have a 100-year-old, right, book from the chamber. It's like the
1923.
It's the Keene Chamber's review book. And it's so interesting. It talks about housing, the need for housing, the need for a new hotel, like all these things. That it's just really interesting to see.
I do have to add one more thing, though. I, as a child, was taken on the train from Keene
Yeah.
to Boston,
Mm.
and that's gone. And yet, today would be such a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it would be
They've
nice.
now put one of those trains on display in Troy, I understand.
I was there when they brought it in. Yeah.
That is quite interesting. I'm going to go over and see it, 'cause I haven't seen it. Silver
It's
bullet.
going to be incredible.
Tells you how old I am.
This,
Just after horse and
How
buggy,
long is the
though.
video?
1.5 minutes. We don't have to watch it.
Go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
go ahead, 1.5 is fine.
Tyler, did you have something?
Are you in a rush to get somewhere?
Well, I want to get Donovan on the
I do
stage
not
as
speak
well,
for a
so-
long time, so the only politician that doesn't
What
like the sound of his
politician ever
voice.
said that?
Right.
It's not 5:30.
Right.
No, we
So,
definitely don't.
I had a question. So we're enticing people to visit here and then maybe to move to work. Are you at all exploring the trades? And, because, I'm on a crew, most of us are over 50. There aren't any young people coming up to, I'm a carpenter. And we need plumbers, electricians.
You can leave
Yeah.
that open, sorry.
And, so,
You can leave it open.
Yes.
yeah, so
So with that Northern Border Grant,
Leave it open,
You just gotta crack it.
Leave it open.
Oh, more?
all the way.
All the way, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We
Sorry,
don't want to keep
Al.
anybody else.
Didn't know that was gonna get off the rails so much.
that's okay.
that's definitely an area. So we haven't started the work on that grant yet. We're still, talking about fundraising and everything. But I would very much like to work with the Manufacturer Consortium, and there's an apprenticeship program that's, I believe, being launched from someone within that consortium, and definitely would like to promote those opportunities as well, because absolutely they are incredibly important, and I think that even as younger generations, they see that as an
Yeah.
avenue without taking out a student loan, and it.
Yeah, when you showed the 16 to 29 demographic on that
Mhm.
one target, that's what.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well.
All right, great, thanks.
Yeah. No. Any other questions? Okay.
Nice.
Thank you. And so that is the end of the presentation.
Can we move there?
Yeah, right? Don't you want to live there?
Yeah, now I do.
Any other quick questions, or? That was a great presentation. Thank you all.
Thank you.
If I could just conclude, we really would appreciate another donation from the town. It makes,
Sorry, what?
Sorry. I know, right? What a time to call.
Wow.
it makes a big difference to us in our fundraising to be able to say that the municipalities are behind this. And we appreciate the support you provided, but if there's any room in the EDA budget for the coming year, I'd love to have another donation to help us meet those matches and activate those grants.
Great. That's discussion, you know, the EDA and see what they approve.
Yes, you came at a good time. We're going to be doing our budgets in the next coming months. But we could put it on the EDA agenda. We have a meeting coming up, I think even next week.
Be great, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Donovan, welcome.
Oh, I'm up.
What's that?
Well, for asking for money, did you take my picture?
Yeah, I would.
So we're going to ask you.
Well, thank you all so much for having me, and that was a really good presentation. My name is Donovan Fenton, State Senator Donovan Fenton. I represent District 10, which includes Peterborough. A little bit about myself. I was born and raised over in Keene. Lived there most of my life with my wife Jackie. We have two little munchkins, a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. They're little terrorists, but they're awesome little boys. And so I know the region very well. I previously, before serving the state senate, I served 3 terms in the House. And I found out that I am the youngest state senator this century, so right around when that book was born. But the funny thing is I make the same amount of money as the guy. So that's not very cool. Maybe we can work on that. But no, I want to talk about kind of what we've done in the legislature this year, what I've done, and kind of tie it into some of the questions that were asked about housing, because that's a huge issue we talk about in the legislature often. Affordable housing, how do we attract these people to New Hampshire when we want to attract these people, but also how do we provide for the people that are already here? Something that we worked on bipartisan manner was that we got $60 million in the budget for affordable housing. And that's kind of unheard of in our budget. I think almost every politician campaigned on affordable housing. So it was an important issue. And that a lot of that money goes to zoning issues. I'm sure everyone in this room has heard zoning. Whenever we talk about housing, staffing, how to help that zoning, incentives for builders to come here and build. So housing is an immense issue that we've been dealing with. Myself as well, I have a Section 8 housing voucher bill that I'm dealing with, trying to help Section 8 housing voucher individuals get into houses, because we're getting a backlog of Section 8, and those are people that desperately need housing now. Something else I want to tie into what we talked about was childcare. how do we attract people here? And a lot of it is childcare. I have 2 young children, and when we had our first son, I couldn't believe how expensive childcare was. And my wife was a childcare teacher before we had our first son, and her full-time wage was less than the cost of what we paid for childcare. It was absolutely crazy. And so, what we worked on in the Senate was $15 million in the budget for childcare. Again, which is something, totally unheard of. If we talked about this 2 years ago, people would have laughed at putting childcare into the budget. But it's so important to attract and retain a workforce because, strong childcare options, a strong public education system, affordable housing, these all tie into this Monadnock Collaborative of how we attract people to the state. Other things that I've worked on personally in the Senate this year was education. I sit on the Education and Transportation Committees. I'm a product of public education, so public education is very near and dear to my heart. And I was able to get loan repayment passed for our teachers to try and attract a teacher workforce here. It just made it through the Senate, knock on wood, I hope it makes it through the House. Other things that we're working on this year, myself, I'm working on a farm bill. A lot of our region got hit by natural disasters this year, including frost, flooding, things like that, and we do not have a lot of options for farmer relief. Really, their only options are a USDA loans, or federal money has to be freed up at a natural disaster level. So this would create a New Hampshire Farm Relief Fund so that they could apply to that. Other issues that I'm working on in the state Senate as well is the homeless situation. In Keene, we kind of have an issue that it seems it comes up every time. And we have these unhoused individuals, and I have an appropriation bill for a pilot program in our region that will help these unhoused individuals get the aid they need immediately. And so it works with their individualized service plans so that, we're preemptive, not reactive anymore. A lot of times we wait till they're homeless, till they can't pay that last month's rent, until they're kicked out. So this bill will hopefully kind of stem the flow of that and help out. And folks, feel free to ask me questions as well. There's a lot that goes on in the Senate, in the House as well. And I'm happy to talk about kind of the makeup of the House. In the Senate, we have 400 House representatives. I'm sure everybody knows that. It's kind of organized chaos at times, but a really cool body to be a part of. And in the Senate, we have 24 members. So it's a much more smaller, collegial body, and it's really about kind of building bridges there and not burning them. But if you guys have any questions for me, my favorite color is green.
Well, when Jonah was here, Jonah Wheeler joined us a month ago, roughly. He talked about the tenor of the House, the fact that it was contentious but had quieted down a bit. I don't remember that when my wife was state senator, I don't remember that the state Senate is all that contentious.
No, it's really not. It's like I said, there's 24 of us in the state Senate, and that's a small body you got to work with. And a lot of times we sit on multiple committees at once, so you work with everyone in the Senate, and you really try and create this goal of bipartisanship in the Senate. I'm a little jealous of Jonah because when I was in the House, there was massive majorities and minorities, so it's because the House is so evenly split, it's really good for New Hampshire. We're seeing a lot of compromise, negotiations, and a lot of good bills, some pretty bad ones, that come out of the House. And that's kind of the smell test is the way I say it. If it passes the House, it's probably a good chance that we can work on it in the Senate, and it's going to be a bipartisan bill.
Nicole has a question.
Which one do I have?
Well, why don't we talk about ambulance
We can
stuff?
certainly talk.
Oh,
about
goodness,
it.
yes.
Yeah.
I've been in contact with you guys as well. So the biggest issue with this ambulance, the way I understand it, is the insurance commissioner and the Department of Insurance, the DOI. We're looking for direct reimbursement to the ambulance services that will help them pay for their services, because it's not just Peterborough, it's happening all over the state right now. And I've talked to Gene about it a little bit as well. And there are a couple bills dealing with direct reimbursement to the ambulance services that we should be having. We're lucky we have an EMT state senator. Her name is Sue Prentice. She was a former ambulance driver, so she's handling a lot of these issues. But you should see something this year come out from that.
So we've seen some bills get introduced already in the House, haven't seen the new language yet.
Mm-hmm.
We did have some issues with HB 373 when it was introduced last year, and that's the bill that you're talking about.
There's a lot of House bills.
Because, absolutely, but that's the one specifically you're talking about in terms of direct payment, which we are absolutely in favor of.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the problems with that bill, the major problem with that bill, and the reason why the ambulance services and municipalities were opposed to it, is because it banned balance billing. So, take for instance, if someone were to have an issue, a medical issue here, and they were taken from Peterborough to Manchester, that bill would likely be anywhere between $1,400 and $2,000 for their care. If the insurance company rather pays the town directly for the service that we've provided, that ambulance service, well, that's usually only about a quarter or maybe a third of that total cost. And if balance billing is illegal, then that means that we can't ask the patient to pay the balance of what's owed to them. Now, the reason why, and no one really wants to do that, because we feel that if you have insurance and you're paying for insurance, just like anybody else, I'm sure thinks this, they're going to cover the full cost of that ambulance transport because it was necessary, it was life-saving. But that's not necessarily the case. Oftentimes, the insurance will pay only a small portion of it, and so the patient will receive the bill for it. Patient will often go back to their insurance company and say, why aren't you paying this? Sometimes there will be adjustments, a lot can happen. Well, insurance companies don't like getting that call from their clients, from the patient. They would rather not get that call. Most patients would rather not have to make that call. And so they would rather make it so that we can't recoup the cost.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that ultimately mean? That means that the cost that then has to be borne by the property taxpayer instead. The town of Peterborough and the other communities that we serve pay enormous amounts of tax dollars every year towards supporting the Peterborough ambulance service because of the shortfalls. So that's one of the issues that we've had. Absolutely, we would love to receive direct payment from the insurance companies. It's not fair that the patient will receive a check from Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield, for instance, since they're the largest insurer in New Hampshire. They'll cash it and use it to pay other bills, not realizing that money was intended to cover their ambulance service, and so they then receive a full bill for the cost. And there's other issues. There were other smaller issues with that bill, but that was the largest one.
I wish I recorded all of that.
I have
It is
I have
recorded.
my
Oh, good.
It is recorded.
You'll notice there's no question in there, so I'm going to move on. No.
I'm
We're on
more than
there.
happy to share the testimony.
I think it'd be
with you.
fantastic. And I think,
Absolutely.
did 373 pass though? out
It
of the
didn't.
House?
It was, it went to committee. They worked on it for a while with representatives from the Fire Chiefs Association. And ultimately was deemed inexpedient to legislate. However, we've already seen 3 ambulance-related bills get introduced in the House. I haven't seen the text of those yet.
This
but
year you've already seen 3.
Already seen.
Okay.
So we're just waiting to see that.
And I do believe there's a study committee, which isn't helpful at all, but they're trying to compile all of this together into one bill to say, how can we solve this in one pass?
Yeah.
But, I think what we're discovering is there's no silver bullet for
There
this.
absolutely
It has to be a
not.
multifaceted approach to tackle this, because like I said, you guys aren't the only ones.
Right.
And I think it started in this area. Someone raised their hand and said, hey, we're having trouble with an ambulance service. And now the whole state is saying, we're coming to a precipice
Right.
where if we don't solve this soon, there's going to be a lot of issues.
Yeah. I mean, the trouble that we face, is significant because we're a rural community.
Mhm.
There are others, particularly up north, who are far more rural than we are. They're seeing ambulance transports of upwards 3, 4, 5, sometimes 6 hours moving people. We've had to move people all over New England. We've had patients going to Connecticut, to New York, anywhere we can find beds for them for the last few years. And those transports are incredibly expensive. They require a paramedic in the back and another licensed provider driving the ambulance.
It has to be
typically.
licensed, yeah.
Yeah, so these are very expensive. The equipment itself is expensive. The treatment can often be very expensive. And so when you're moving people for those many hours, there's a significant cost to that. folks have tried to say, well, that's surprise billing, that's a surprise cost. It's not a surprise, it's an emergency. There is a difference. So I'm always wary of language like that as well, that we've seen come up in some of these bills. Another thing to be aware of is that CMS, which is the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, has been conducting a study of rural ambulance services for many years. And they're probably just about at the point where they're getting ready to issue their report, coming out of all the survey work they've done, which will seek to, find what is the real cost of providing rural ambulance services that will hopefully have a positive impact on reimbursements from Medicaid and Medicare, and typically that gets reflected out. But if we're looking for a benchmark, that's a benchmark. That's one of the real solid studies that we'll be able to look at and say, this is what it really costs to provide that ambulance service, rather than trying to, pluck a number out of the air or, use whatever the insurance companies are willing to reimburse at, to actually have something to lean back on.
And I think that study is the most important thing, because we have so many fire chiefs and, forgive the pun, so many chefs in the kitchen that have an idea on how we can fix this ambulance service, but until we have factual data that supports exactly how we can fix it, it's going to be, you're going to have people keep guessing in the House and in the Senate.
Exactly, and so I would really hope that if any of these bills do make it out of the House and into the Senate this year, maybe the brakes can be tapped a bit until we actually see the results of that study.
I agree.
Who's doing this?
There's a one of the simpler ways to explain the situation is that if somebody ends up at Monadnock Community Hospital and we can't afford to continue our ambulance transfer service, then people are going to be sitting and dying waiting for a ride. It's like the most simple way to explain it is that if we don't get this solved and solved fast, then people are going to die waiting for a ride to get to where they need to be.
No, I agree. And we've looked at, one of the topics that came up was, well, maybe we take away some of the certifications for that ambulance driver, and maybe they just become a driver. And the arguments against that was, no, they need to be an EMT. They need to be a licensed EMT to provide that critical care, because everyone in that ambulance could be called upon to provide life-saving measures.
Yep.
So that got dialed back. So like I said, there's, everyone's throwing a dart at the board trying to figure this out, but until we have some factual data, because we know the problem's happening. We know people's lives are in limbo and at risk, and it's, what is the answer? And until we get all the stakeholders on board, especially the Department of Insurance, all the fire chiefs together, how to solve that issue. I didn't have an answer fully for you, so I apologize.
What study is this?
So it's a study that's being done by the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services, so it's a federal study. It's something if you remember, 5 years ago now, I think, there was the surprise medical billing went through Congress. And they banned it, but they carved out an exception for ambulance service because of the issues that we're talking about right now. And so it was decided that there would be a study, undertaken that would look very closely at the cost of actually providing ambulance service in rural areas. I know that a number of New Hampshire communities, including our own, have participated in that. And it's quite in-depth. It'll be very interesting to see what the results are. But there really is no question that it's going to require a big shift to keep rural ambulance services afloat. As you look across the country, they're collapsing. The healthcare services all over the country are collapsing, whether it's California, Minnesota, and we're starting to see it here, edges of it here. So it's something we need to tackle very quickly, somehow.
Any other questions? Something I forgot to mention is that this is a non-budget year for us. We do our budget in 2-year terms, every 2 years, I should say. So you should see some pretty interesting legislation coming out. Also, to piggyback off of what she was saying is the House has 400 members, and there's a ton of bills that come out of the House, like upwards thousands of bills. Anyone can introduce a bill, and it has to be heard. So I could introduce a bill saying, I don't want to allow elephants in the state of New Hampshire. And we have to take that seriously. We have to have a committee hearing. We have to listen to the individual that proposed it and then vote it yes or no. So we see a lot of some good stuff and some bad stuff.
Nuisance bills, you say?
Yeah, and it's
Wasted time, they call it in the business.
yeah, it's unfortunate, but also there are some good bills and a lot of good legislators that do the time, and really do their research and, figure out what can help New Hampshire, how can we attract people to the state.
Oh, what's happening with the Free Staters? I mean, is that changing? Are there more and more of them each election season, or?
Yeah, yes and no. I don't follow them too closely. This is an organization that has chosen New Hampshire as their home base to live free and create anarchy and limited government.
No services.
Yeah, no services. They want to abolish government essentially. We do have a couple serving in the House, and I believe maybe one in the Senate. But, again, we try and build bridges, not burn them. So we try and find any common ground we possibly can to work together and hopefully not burn those services to the ground.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I'll just say thank you for filling the role. Like Bill, I have a relative who was in this position before, and I know what a burden it is, so thank you for doing it.
Well, I appreciate it. In my real job, I'm a car salesman, so I have thick skin doing it, and I don't take no for an answer. No, it's a really good job. I was born and raised here, and it's pretty awesome when your English teacher calls you and says, "Oh my God, thank you so much for that bill." Or you see your old soccer coach, or you see the guy's restaurant you used to go to all the time and wreak havoc. So it's really cool. It's really I should be thanking you.
What do I gotta do to get you into this bill today?
Oh God, which bill?
Well, that'd be the cars.
That's right. No, I have a very light touch most times. It's like I said, it's really about just you got to work with everyone, and you shouldn't run for office if you're not willing to do so. That's how I see it.
Well, we're very thankful.
Yes.
Hi. Nicole and I fill the role as welfare officers here in town, and I was very excited to hear you mention that there's something in the works to help people who are unhoused. I think it would surprise a lot of people to know what an issue this is, especially in rural areas like this. And especially in the last year, kind of once the funding was shut off related to COVID-19, we've seen a really big surge in the number of people who've lost their homes or are threatened with that. And it's been a struggle to get support from the state in regards to what do we do because of the lack of shelter spaces. So when those efforts move forward, I know that I'm not the only municipal welfare officer that feels this way. I know that we would all really appreciate having the opportunity to collaborate more on the state level to help our residents get what they need, because it's a growing problem.
It truly is, and it's one we don't think enough about. And I had one of my bills passed this past year that dealt with reimbursement for residents who seek aid. So like in Keene, we have a pretty big town, we have a homeless shelter, and what we were seeing was that small towns were sending their unhoused individuals to Keene for services, but these small towns weren't reimbursing us for the services of that resident. So my bill would say, say small town sent that resident to Keene or to Peterborough for services. That small town now has to reimburse the town for that individual. And the thought process behind this is that hopefully that town in their budget meeting says, whoa, this is costing us a lot of money to send these individuals to seek aid. Why don't we create our own aid in our town? And so that's one avenue I've taken. It's towns without the welfare officers in it, because they often send them to other cities. But no, the homeless issue, it's not getting any better, it seems like, especially in these bigger towns. And hopefully this pilot program will, I got to get out of the Senate again, knock on wood. But no, it's something that, again, I keep mentioning these precipices, but we're getting there, Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Maybe had a question.
I was just a follow-up to that. I just want to make sure that I understood that properly when you were saying that if a smaller town sent somebody, to somewhere else for services, then they would have to then pay.
That's right.
So I mean, and I just want to make sure that but the biggest thing that I think I've seen from working with Ally and different things is when people come to, say, Peterborough, for instance, it's not necessarily a Peterborough resident that comes here looking for aid.
Exactly, and
So it's, people come here because we have a welcoming town whose welfare officers are helpful. And so they get sent here because we won't turn them away because we do a good job at our jobs.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah, it is a good thing, but then if we then have to pay for every person who comes into our town, even if they're not residents here, that's...
No, I think you misunderstood it.
Okay.
It's the opposite.
Okay.
So,
If another town sends them here,
Yeah.
they have to reimburse us for what we spend.
so say you accept that individual from Troy.
Yeah.
Troy now has to reimburse you, and that individual stays a resident of Troy, is what's in the bill.
I feel like unhoused individuals don't always have towns that we can revert back to.
You're right, not necessarily,
Yeah.
but
That's where I was-
there's no perfect cookie cutter that's
Yeah.
gonna hit that on,
Yeah.
but it's one step to hopefully make these towns, these smaller towns, say, okay, let's provide our own services. How can we help these unhoused individuals? Because it's just another tool in our arsenal to hopefully help this homelessness situation.
Just to clarify that this has always been kind of the case for a long time. RSA 165 is
And that's
always
what it updated.
required. Yeah, exactly. It always required that a town is responsible for persons who don't have the means to care for themselves.
Yeah.
If they're a resident. And so, when Peterborough is able to get an unhoused family into a shelter in Keene or Manchester or wherever, we're still obligated to pay the cost. We as taxpayers still obligated to pay the cost of their upkeep, so long as they're in that sheltered situation until they become either a resident back in Peterborough again and able to maintain themselves, or a resident in another community and have been there for a minimum of 30 days. So this is really just solidifying that and making it much clearer. And it was a needed update, because we certainly have had that experience where small communities, doesn't happen in Peterborough as much because we don't have our own shelter. We have, a not-for-profit shelter that operates in town. But other communities like Keene, particularly in this area, have shelters that are run, by the city or by affiliated organizations. And they saw a lot more people getting sent over from the tiny towns.
Do you have a perspective on what's happening with drugs, the war on drugs, or what the state is doing?
Yeah, so we have an opioid abatement fund. We're also waiting for a lot of money from the Sackler family, which we're trying to figure out what to do with and how we're going to apply that. And I'm told there's more money coming in than we originally thought, which is nice, but we haven't received that monies yet. We're kind of lucky in our southwestern corner where, especially Keene, we don't have a lot of interstate exits. So it's not as a prevalent issue as the rest of the state, but a lot of these communities are still feeling the effects of the opioids. And we did put some money in the budget for the opioid abatement fund. I believe it was around 10 million, but that's a drop in the bucket, especially dealing with this. The governor has made it one of his priorities, but again, it was only 10 million in the budget for that, so I'm not sure how big of a priority it was, but not much was done this past year on that. And I'm not sure what's been introduced this year in terms of so tomorrow is our deadline to sign off on co-sponsored bills. So a lot of our bills are still in flux. We still haven't seen a lot of full language of certain bills, things like that. So after this week, the dust should settle and we should see kind of who's introduced what. Any more questions? Guys, if you ever need to reach me, my cell phone's readily available, my email is available. I usually answer all phone calls unless it's like 7 p.m. I put my kids to bed, so I'm in bath time mode, but please reach out to me if you ever need anything.
Thanks a lot.
Absolutely, thank you guys, appreciate it.
Yeah, a lot of great questions.
See you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Donovan.
And I'm gonna go home and put my kids to bed now,
Yeah.
so. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
So am I. I'm gonna go find some kids.
Yes, so we are there.
Thank you all
should
very
get a
much.
paid ad. We'll do that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And we're going to do another edition next year.
We'll put that ambulance business in the market.
Oh, no,
Well, that's-
bring the healthcare provider.
That's just,
Yes, we want
just as big a part of what needs to happen here.
For a
Yeah,
very
any young
brief-
person that wants to.
Can I squeeze in one other comment?
Yeah, please.
We've gotten a lot of support from Cheshire County for this. To the extent that you interact with the commissioners in Hillsborough, we'd love to have some support from them. I mean, I don't know if you how much interaction you have with the county, but,
Basically,
you know,
none.
yeah, it just feels like we're this like forgotten edge of Hillsborough County. We applied for a grant when they were giving out their, what was it?
ARPA funds.
ARPA, saying, you know, like, look what Cheshire County's done, help this, you know, the 11 towns in Hillsborough County that are part of this region, and we didn't win it, but we could keep working that.
Might have just as much effect coming from the CEO of Yankee Publishing as it does one of us.
Really, you just
Honestly.
don't feel like there's anything.
There's no, it's almost impossible to get even a response from the county.
Yeah.
They have really walled themselves off from us, unfortunately.
Just thought I'd take a shot.
Thank you.
Oh, they just immediately, they're very good at calling us and telling us what the daily interest rate is.
All right, up next we have Seth MacLean.
Very brief update.
Oh, thank you. Update, December 23. All set? Good, there it is.
Looks
great. Fire station. All right.
Great, man.
Any questions? Thank you. We're all friends. I was going to give the whole spiel, but the people that I don't know, I think, left. I'll give an abbreviated version because we're running a little long tonight. So every time we do this once a month, I try to keep updating our acknowledgements because there's been a lot of people that have been working on this for decades. And I finally remembered to add the Peterborough Energy Committee and the patrons of the PCC Food Pantry and Southern New Hampshire Services because they've been vocal throughout the process in helping us to craft a site plan that really we think makes sense for the project going forward. So I won't read them all, but again, we always try to make sure we recognize people that give of their time and try and support their community, and especially critical projects like this that require this level of involvement. Very important. So a lot of people involved. We can keep moving on them. Project milestones. I read this last time. I'm not sure you need me to again, but I've sort of, for the purpose of abbreviating presentations, separated into two sections. The discovery phase, where we were trying to figure out what made the most sense for our project and how we should craft our project, touring facilities, speaking with our various volunteer committees and individuals around town, stakeholders in the community, to try and craft something that we felt people would say, yes, we can get behind this, at least regardless of the outcome of how this goes at town meeting, we're comfortable with this as our process. And that was the discovery phase, which sort of ended in May of '23 once we decided to move forward and advance our design plan. So I won't read this to you, but I'm happy to talk to anybody about all the details anytime you like. And my contact information is going to be on the last slide. So next slide, please. But more importantly right now, because we're in the conceptual phase of this project, every time I come back I talk about some of the things that we've done. I won't belabor a lot of these. We'll hit the highlights real quick. We selected a construction manager to help us keep our project tight and on budget throughout the process and get expert construction advice. Also helped us connect with great architectural firms by helping us craft a meaningful RFP/Q, RFQ/P, however you want to put it. That's a bid in the summer for architectural services. Formalized our building committee, and a lot of you are actually here tonight. Mandy's our chair, Carl's our co-chair, Bill's on the committee as well, and started to really dig into the details of what this project needed to be. Held a lot of different sessions with a lot of different people, including sustainability, which is at the top here, which is why it's jumping out to me, and really digging into the sort of the weeds of what this project needed in order for our community to say, this process is good and we like the outcome. Again, regardless of the vote, we can say, hopefully definitively when we get that far, we've put together something that resonates and that people can say, this is a good effort at what we're trying to achieve here in town. And that's really been my goal. Let's jump through a lot of different committee meetings and things throughout the summer. Let's move over to November and talk about what's happened over the last month, just to keep things moving quickly here. Presented the project to the CIP earlier in November. Similar to the presentation tonight, a little bit more detailed, but gave them an opportunity to sort of look at it now that it's been built out a little bit. I'd say, I don't know, 20% or so. Talking to the architect today, he didn't want to give me a number, but we'd say 20% there at this point in terms of design. But it gave enough to talk to various committees and say, we've got the shell of a project here. What do you think? How are we doing so far? So the CIP had their opportunity early this month. Followed shortly thereafter, another week by the Conservation Commission, which was an important consideration because there are some potential wetland buffer impacts. And we wanted to before going through the full design process, really formalizing that and getting into the higher level of detail. Wanted to give them an opportunity to weigh in on where we're at now and hopefully advise us as to what they're hoping to see as we move through the process, assuming an affirmative vote this coming May. And then there was another building committee meeting on the 16th where we got some updates from site plan, which I'm going to show, and you're going to be very interested to hear because I think we've kind of got to where we need to be with the entrance to the PCC. So we received a site plan update. We received some architectural updates from our lead architect, Jason. Minimal at this point, small changes configuration and a little bit of downsizing in some rooms. Again, drilling towards getting us to a budget that we can stand behind. Energy model updates. Again, we've been working with Resilient Buildings Group, and they've been modeling different energy considerations to help us understand what our long-term outlay will be and to help inform our decision-making process and hopefully right sizing and selecting the right systems for this facility for many years to come. And that's probably the net of that particular that meeting on 11/16. So next slide, please. I showed this last time, I'll say it again, because nothing as far as I've been told has changed at this point, but conceptual design is trending on budget. It meets the programmatic needs of the fire and ambulance service. It reuses the motor pool, which helped us to reduce the size of the overall facility from a couple years ago. It improves the safety for pedestrians and motorists on the entire site, including the PCC, and separates some DPW access to provide a little safer safety enhancements to the PCC, which we know is used heavily, and we would like to separate that traffic, of course. Incorporates sustainability considerations that we think are going to help us get towards our 2030 goal here in this community, and is approximately 30% smaller than the original design shown prior to town meeting. The new facility has the opportunity, maybe not on our first pass, we're not sure yet, depends on how the budget comes down, but it has the opportunity to eventually operate as a net zero facility. The design will accommodate, but there are some key decisions that will need to be made by the building committee before we can say that definitively. But we'll have the opportunity, even if we can't do it on the first go-around, which I think is a great achievement for the project if it goes, regardless of how much we can incorporate on the first pass. Next, please. So, this is really the meat of what's happened over the last month leading up to tonight. The geotechnical engineering, which I mentioned last time, has advanced, and it indicates that the site is favorable for the design and construction of a conventional shallow footing foundation system. That's great news because deeper foundation would cost us a heck of a lot more money. So that's great that it came back. We have a little bit more geophysical work that needs to be performed to better determine the seismic site class, so getting a higher level of detail on what the soils are in relation to building code requirements for things like vibrations in the ground, so that you're properly I know we don't get a lot of earthquakes around here, but you do have to design to a standard based on your soil type, and so that's what we're doing at this point. Those are advancing presently. Civil engineering plans have advanced to the 60% mark and actually have been submitted. I got the email sitting in this room to the SMP team. That's critical because the architecture team has advanced schematic designs throughout the last month to the point where I think tomorrow the entire package is going to Harvey Construction for estimating, which is big. A lot of meetings and decisions have happened that led us to the point where they could hand over the packet and say, okay, estimate, and come back to us and let's talk about real money at this point when we get into January. So as I said, the construction management group, Harvey, is advising and estimating. At this point, they'll have the package hopefully tomorrow, and they have committed to delivering on or before the 4th of January a budget for our project, which is huge, which gets us right into our critical budget discussions throughout the course of January. Big one for the building committee. The building committee, once they get that information on the 4th of January, or hopefully before, will need to consider whether or not this project moves forward throughout the process, and eventually, if everybody, including the select board, approves, on to town meeting. But as we've talked about all along, the building committee will be tasked with the first pass on, can we get to where we need to be in terms of our budgetary goals as a community, and if we can't, then we're going to pause and we're going to take the time to refine the plans. As I mentioned on an earlier slide, our professional service providers have indicated to us that they feel that we are going to be able to get there, and that is good news. But we'll see when we get the spreadsheet. To the next, please. So as I mentioned, We've got a budget review session with the building committee tentatively scheduled for January 4th or thereabouts. And that's going to be a critical session where that team looks at the budget from Harvey. This is a budget that Harvey is willing to stand behind. And if we feel it's, or if they feel, I should say, it's appropriate and within a margin above or below our targets at this point, feel we can get there, then they'll be taking a vote. Maybe not at that meeting, depends on how much information they have to consider, but that's the target right now. And then if the project advances, the project's budget is currently scheduled to be discussed in this room, might need a bigger room, on the 23rd of January with the Budget Committee, Select Board, and of course the public. And that will be a...
30th.
Excuse me?
30th now.
Has that changed?
It just changed.
Okay.
I had to update the calendar.
Now the 30th.
That was close.
Gives you 7 more days.
We might need them. Because if we're being honest, it's a big, complicated project, and we think there may be some items that we have to consider taking off the project in order to get us to our budgetary goals. It's just the reality of a project that's this large and complicated. So more time would be great. Next slide. So this is the big one, I think, because there was awful lot of discussion about the site plan, particularly as relates to the access point for the PCC. Site Civil went back, looked at it, and essentially helped us to get back to where we started with concept plan, if you remember number 4, which showed a one-way drive. And there's an updated design that I got this evening, which we'll be discussing in the building committee shortly. But this is the design that was shown to the building committee in November, and the building committee supported going back to this route at that time. So essentially, similar to the concept plan 4 from the original iteration, we're currently moving forward. Now, I said we're at 60% design. That just means we're not there. There can still be modifications, but for the purpose of bidding and estimating this project to get us to our 1/4 deadline, this is very similar to what Harvey Construction is currently estimating, and we believe, or I believe, this access point better reflects what the stakeholders of the facility have been asking for. So it'd be a one-way at this point with a stop sign, as opposed to before there was a gravel drive coming off here. It's sort of hammerheaded and dead-ended, and nobody seemed to really like that idea very much. So. Next slide. Site plan remains about the same. Not a lot of changes there. As I mentioned, there was some small reductions in size to some of the ancillary spaces, but the design has been sort of blessed to move forward through the estimating process at this point. So it hasn't changed a heck of a lot at this point. And I leave every one of these presentations with a reminder on how you can get way more information than I'm giving you tonight. peterboroprojects.info. You can also link to that site through the town's official website. You can scan the QR code on the postcard if you happen to keep those types of things, which probably nobody does at this point. But and then when you get there, you can see the last design in public forum. There's Mandy, our chair, giving the opening remarks, and followed by our architect and civil engineers giving a lot more detailed look at the design plan at this point. So please visit there if you would like to really look at a further level of detail. Next slide. On that website, there's an FAQ board. Maybe you have a question, maybe you're driving home tonight, maybe you're watching at home and you have a question and you don't want to come to a meeting, but you want to reach out to the building committee. You can ask us a question here, we will respond. You can link back to it, those 3 different options I showed you before. Go to the town website, it's the easiest way to find it, and you can link to the project page. And then other ways to learn about the project and engage directly with the project team, upcoming public events attended by a building committee member, working through some details in some of those, but I'm scheduled to go with the fire chief to the Rotary Club in early January, so we'll be giving a more detailed presentation to that group at that time, and we'll be looking for more opportunities to speak with civic groups. I know the building committee is also looking for opportunities. You can attend a building committee meeting. At this point, there's not a lot left, really, leading into the budget, and those will be public discussions as well. But please consider also participating in the public budgeting process because we will really be putting dollars to this project at that point. And you can call or email me anytime. Happy to answer your questions or talk about anything over the last 3 years, or if you just have some public works inquiries, happy to talk about those as well. And my email address is right here as well. So with that, that's our November into December update for the fire station project.
Thanks, man.
Nicely done. Any questions? Anybody? How could anybody have any questions?
That's why I love Seth being a presenter.
Yeah, that was great. And excellent taking the feedback from, we heard it at our last meeting with the presentation you made about that pantry access.
We were trying to develop a project that people, feel confident in, and I think that requires this level of input on something that's complicated and expensive, if we're being honest, so we got to get it right.
Is there, one quick question, is the, Al Lennis, is there any more consideration about the community center? That's not tied into this necessarily, I mean, there's no work being done, but is there a connection somehow to the community center in terms of the amount of work that's being done, refurbishment or appearance-wise? Does it want to blend with the building?
There's a refurbishing project that we're currently working on, so the town did receive, thanks to two excellent grant writers in the room here, $1 million grant to help us with that, and I'm currently...
Three excellent.
Three, maybe four, maybe a few. But there was a grant that we were successful in obtaining that maybe know a little bit about that at this point, and that work is about to get going in earnest, working through some contract language and trying to develop that project scope right now. So hopefully there'll be a lot of action on that site if everything goes through in the next 2 years.
Along those lines, will there be any attempt to make the exterior of the building blend somehow with the fire department? The appearance of the fire department, so you don't have one...
Not in the scope of the refurbishing project.
Okay, that was part of it. Thank you.
The project is very specific to building system upgrades and ADA compliance.
Good question.
We won't be painting any bees on the new fire department.
That's what we're getting to.
But we're not taking the bees away from the PCC.
Good.
If anything, the fire station is matching the PCC with brick.
They're doing the best they can with a modern facility next to an old armory. Yeah, that was
One
the
more
intent.
question. Is the museum still in the works?
For the purpose of budget estimating, the museum is still in the design.
Okay.
Anyone else? All right, great. Thanks again, Seth. Great questions. Up next, I see Lisa here. We have, are we all going to get to take rides on this morning?
Sure. Ray can teach you.
14.5, we could use it tomorrow almost.
Well, that zero turn feature is just, that's the fun part, right?
Actually, the Ronnie's engine, who we got the quote from, will take a trade-in of $12,500. So really, the price comes down to $13,225.
Excellent. So we're not doing the 14.5 expenditure, or we are?
I do not know how the town works with that.
We still have to do the expenditure, even if it ends up being less. You have to.
Okay. Great. Well, that would be good news if we got a good trade-in. So if anybody's not wondering why we're purchasing a zero-turn mower and when we're about to get snow.
To save 3.5%.
Yes. That's the answer, right? And we saw that in your notes. So I just wanted people to hear that while we're on air.
I wanted to commend Lisa for doing her homework. We, as a town, have decided that we want to electrify, and unfortunately, there aren't any zero-turn mowers of this quality that we can use, although I'm sure that we're both on the same page when we're talking about cutting a pond when that comes up.
Right. Oh, for sure. I tried to purchase one, and for whatever reason, their system wasn't matching what I was trying to do. So I was trying to buy one that was highly rated and get 2 battery backups for Cunningham Pond. So it's still a march in the future, and that'll probably be in the spring.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Adhering to that plan that we settled, I think is a great idea.
Great. Yeah, thanks for adding that. All right, I'd make a motion that we approve an expenditure of $14,500 from the Recreation Equipment Management Capital Reserve Fund for the purchase of a zero-turn mower.
Second.
Any further questions? Who's going to stop us? All those in favor?
Second.
Thank you. Great. Nice work. Thank you. Next up, people wishing to join. Hi, Amy.
Hi.
Diane Hanson would like to join the Library Trustee Board, comes recommended through Tina Kriebel and Amy Aubertin. would like to join the Conservation Commission, recommended, I met Amy at the Conservation Commission the other night, and, or when we last met. And so, would you, is Diane here? Let's see, Diane.
Yeah.
Well, would you like to just introduce yourself and say hi?
Yeah, sure. Hi.
You came all the way out? That's
Yeah,
nice.
I'm Amy Aubertin, live up on Vine Street, and yeah, so I met with Francie. I also went to the Conservation Commission's last meeting. Just, I guess, a little bit of background. I've been here 6 years and formerly lived in Ashby for 25, and 9 of that I was on the Ashby Land Trust. Also, I think I did, I forget, 2 or 3 terms as a library trustee. So, but yeah, I'm interested in helping out. And so I met with Francie, and I think that's it, unless there's anything else I need to.
That's probably it.
That's probably it.
Yeah, thank you for coming in, and of course, we say this every time we approve or, appoint people that our town runs on volunteers, really, and everybody in the audience is volunteering. And that's how the business gets done a lot of times. Our volunteers save the taxpayers a lot of money. They give a lot of their time, so it's much appreciated. And I would make that motion to appoint Diane Hanson as library trustee, alternate member, and Amy Aubertin as an alternate member of the CONCOM.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Great, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in, too.
That was hard.
How about them minutes?
Well, November 7th. Anybody read them?
Yes.
Oh, good.
I didn't have any comments.
I'd make a motion that we approve them as written.
Second that.
Great. All those in favor? There is one more other item that was buried in our packet, and I think it's worth mentioning. An award that was, it's there, the wastewater treatment facility energy award.
Right.
And I'm going to get down to the language that's in that letter. Because something struck me. We have T-shirts out there that say the greenest town in New Hampshire, right? It may be time for a new slogan on a T-shirt. We've been awarded as the most improved activated sludge facility. Now, they could be brown shirts.
I know, the brownest town in.
Right? Nothing dead.
Brown is
dead.
beautiful.
You can hear a pin drop. Not a good idea. Hey, what do you have?
Tyler, wouldn't it have to be part brown and mostly green?
Okay, fine. Mostly green. Right. So anyway, I did want to say, that's a great award. We came a long way, and it's because of the solar array and the work that's being done up there and all that, right?
There's been a lot more than the solar array at that point. Honestly, we have an incredibly dedicated staff led by a very capable leader, Nate Brown,
Yes.
Who puts everything into their work daily to try and increase efficiency at that place, irrespective of town goals. I mean, he's a cheap Yankee. That's what really drives him. Trying to find ways to do things efficiently and cheaply, but that group is inspiring.
He wouldn't be Scottish as well.
I don't think so.
Well,
You can ask them.
So I did. It was important.
Thank you for bringing it up.
Those things get lost in the shuffle down there. So great work out there. Motion to adjourn.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us tonight, everyone.